AI will never be conscious. Probably. Maybe. I am far from an expert on psychology, computer science, biology, philosophy, any of that stuff. But I am an expert on stories, and I actually think that might make me more qualified to speak on this subject than other people. This isn't my normal subject, and it's not about to become a thing I talk about regularly, but I'm hearing a lot of people insisting that AI will inevitably become conscious, and I don't think they fully considered that. So, I'm here to help. The argument, as far as I can tell, is that the organic brain is just a machine. If you don't think a machine like the brain can be built, you must have some weird creationist bent. You must think humans are ontologically higher up than other beings, uniquely loved by God. But I don't think that. I actually think that that belief portrays a more spiritualistic view of humanity than I hold. Consciousness isn't a thing we achieved because our brains became so damn complex. Consciousness is a survival instinct, like any other. I enjoy it, glad it's there, but let's not pretend it's the gold standard to which all forms of intelligence must strive. So, instead of saying that computers will inevitably be smart enough to be conscious, let's ask what consciousness is, where it comes from, and if it actually makes sense for machines to develop it. Yes, the structure of the brain as we currently understand it generates a consciousness, but to my knowledge there is no such thing as a blank brain, except my mom's dog. That brain is clean as a whistle. Every human brain that we've ever observed comes from a person with a history and a genetic legacy. Can you really isolate what part of the brain is innate and what part is individualized to make a unique consciousness? Even Alan Turing's idea of a child computer assumes that a human child is just a blank brain, rather than a young brain in an early stage of development. This is an important consideration that I don't think gets enough attention. If you're literally just copying one specific person's brain into a machine, you're not making a new consciousness, are you? You're extending the consciousness of the original brain owner. And that's something that human beings have been doing for thousands of years, using cutting-edge technology like writing things down so you don't forget them. We've been offloading cognition onto our tools for a very long time, and we don't think of our tools as being conscious. Humans reproduce sexually, and that means that our young are never genetically identical to us. Everyone has a distinct genetic makeup. Even identical twins have some variation. And if each brain is mechanically a little bit different from any other, why would we assume that just copying a brain would make a conscious being? Whose brain is it? How much copying is happening here? How do you foresee this going down exactly? I'm going to presumptuously anticipate your response. Sorry in advance. What if we could make an entirely unique brain that is both genetically distinct from any other person while still mechanically being something that could be categorically described as a brain? And to that I say, I'm not a creationist. I don't believe one can intelligently create a conscious mind. Not a god and not a human. Only evolution can do that, in my opinion. Here's why. Let's define consciousness. In order to be aware of something, there needs to be an intelligent recognition of a thing's relationship to you. I see a thing, and I don't just observe a clump of molecules, but an item that can help me, harm me, make me feel bad for not doing Ozempic, that kind of thing. That's why, for something to be considered conscious, it must have consciousness of itself. The self arises out of desires, or a more accurate term might be drives. The self is the story the mind tells us about who we are and what kinds of decisions we should make. Anytime an interaction with the world causes us to react in a particular way, our reaction is fed into a synthesized fabric of a single person. Like every time you get chocolate ice cream, anytime you stay in on a Saturday night, anytime you buy a new book. Those decisions arise from desires that then solidify ideas you have about yourself. I prefer chocolate ice cream. I'm more of an introvert. These are the kinds of books I like. This doesn't just happen in the mind, it's a biological reality that the mind is just one aspect of. We constantly create ourselves in reaction to the outside world in a process known as autopoiesis, which literally means self-creation.
But a major viewpoint, first put out by two fellows from Chile named Maturana and Varela. Their theory of what defines life is called autopoiesis. And they define life using this approach that says something is alive that has a bounded structure, that has a porous membrane dividing inside and outside, that there are processes of sensing what's outside, integrating that information, processing it, and then responding. It's all about how groups of interacting individuals self-organize into larger scale structures.
A life is not a clump of cells or a soul or anything as concrete as that. A life is a system of bodies that can organize and adapt to their environment. Think of an ant colony. No single ant acts as the administrator of resources or decides where to construct a home. Rather, the colony naturally organizes in a way that can react flexibly to random external events while maintaining the ability to propagate itself. If the system can't react appropriately, it dies out. The same process applies to the story of the self. A human being isn't really a thing. In fact, we aren't even fully human. Only a very small fraction of the cells in your body are human cells. The others belong to the many intersecting systems of bacteria that exist in you to keep you alive. Yet, these processes work together to generate a network of systems that we call you. No one can say exactly when consciousness evolved, but it seems obvious to me that the experience of being an autopoietic system is what gives rise to the instinct to create a self. Sense of self, as many philosophers have noticed, isn't a single thing. In fact, it's really more of an illusion. It behaves in the same convoluted, busy, self-correcting way our cells do. It reacts to stimulus and then fabricates a narrative of synchronicity and unification after the fact. I have my own weird way of conceptualizing how networks of self-perpetuating systems apply to the mind. If this video has already been too trippy for you, take a break here, maybe? Or just strap in. Our minds categorize information in order to make it useful, and it does this by creating stories. I think this is why humans love stories, by the way. I think it's just a fundamental way our brains organize information. Telling or listening to stories is a kind of play, the way cats play at hunting by stalking you. That's why I make so many videos on how storytelling works, I guess. I'm just an animal trying to make sense of stuff that I never evolved to perceive perfectly. Stories grab our interest by introducing us to characters that face challenges and learn lessons to achieve specific goals. Some characters feel more three-dimensional than others, but in the end, characters have an objective that facilitates the relationship they have with the plot. Humans aren't like that because life is way more complicated than that. We have tons of thematic threads running through our lives that we are constantly trying to make sense of by fitting them into their correct story. So, in each person there are multitudes of what I call characters. Each one carries a separate thread of our continuous lived experience. I don't know if anyone in my audience has ever played The Void by Ice Pick Lodge. It's a weird little game made by a weird little developer with some wacky ideas, and I love it dearly. I bring it up because it actually creates a metaphor for consciousness that I really subscribe to. In the game, a person is composed of sisters, who are like these sexy ladies who each want to make their mark on the world above. They essentially compete for the main character's attention in order to become the dominant narrative in his life. Great game, can't recommend it enough. No one's life consists of a single story. It's many stories that we all tell ourselves instinctually. For instance, think about your relationship to money. As a child, your needs were taken care of, but your freedom was limited, and material goods were gotten and chosen for you. When you became an adult, you might have gotten the chance to become independent, and that part of you might be the reason you stick with a job that you don't like but pays well. That synthesized thread of desires, reactions, fears create a character. In one particular story, your mind tells you about who you are. Someone who cares about promotions, raises, worries about getting fired. Of course, you're way more complicated than that. Your mind is an ever-entangling web of characters living out different stories. So, humans are these momentary phenomena arising from intersecting systems. We make this convoluted reality usable to our minds by assigning fragments of ourselves, what I call characters, to these stories. All these stories are cells in an autopoietic system we call the conscious mind. The autopoiesis of the mind and the body are the same thing. They arise from wanting things. Your cells want to continue creating you, and one of the tools they use is your consciousness. Machines don't do autopoiesis of any kind today, and I'd argue that they probably never will. Here's why. First of all, I think the logic is just completely broken. Like, even trying to make the machine conscious involves a human trying to prompt a set of behaviors rather than a system adapting and self-organizing on its own. Imagine you could hypnotize a human being into doing anything that you wanted, even acting against their own self-interest. In this state, you have that person assist you in everything that you do. They help you at work, they do your chores, they protect you. You wouldn't be like, wow, I can't believe this person only cares about helping me. They must be really self-motivated to make my life easier. No, asshole, you told them what to prioritize. You've essentially turned that person into a piece of technology for your use. They're not acting out behaviors resulting from their own desires. So, trying to program behavior into another network of systems, like a computer, is sort of the opposite of letting it develop autopoiesis. Even just teaching the machine facts makes it more of an extension of human consciousness than a consciousness in its own right. Again, it's just offloading cognition. It may be able to have an intelligent conversation on our behalf, but that's because we've already provided it with our own part of the conversation before the conversation. And then we're blown away that AI sounds so human. It's just a person talking to us without even listening to what we have to say. That's pretty human, I guess. Anyway, there's a slightly more subtle reason I don't believe that a machine can become autopoietic. An autopoietic system needs to be self-motivated. That's the auto part of the equation. We don't currently think of machines as wanting things. Even when they're able to prompt themselves to perform certain actions, that doesn't come from an inherent sense of wanting something. It's making decisions based on priorities that we gave it. Machines learn how to make decisions through a process called reward modeling. When you're a baby, you learn not to touch a hot stove when you touch the hot stove and it hurts a whole lot. Computers can't feel pain, so instead their decisions and behaviors are assigned a reward score. This simulates the kind of reward system our ancestors used to learn how to achieve goals. A successful hunting strategy effectively receives a greater reward score than a poor strategy by virtue of raising the odds of the human's chances of survival. But giving a computer a bad score on an action will only change the way it thinks in order to match a human's priorities more effectively. And yes, I do believe that machines think. I don't think that makes them conscious, though. These scores don't correspond to the machine's ability to get what it wants because it doesn't want anything. It has no needs. It doesn't even want to please you just to continue living. If you command it to turn off, that command will trigger a set of responses that will turn the machine off, no problem. Machines don't have needs. They don't reproduce, they have no desire to survive, and they therefore don't do autopoiesis. This is why we don't currently think of computers as wanting things or feeling fear. Though many people recognize complex emotions in AI, talking to them for a few minutes makes it pretty clear that the system isn't actually trying to communicate a need. It's just regurgitating inputs in ways that are actually pretty expected, considering the sheer amount of information that humans dump on them every single day. I don't understand how desire and sense of self are expected to emerge from a mass of offloaded human cognitions and priorities. It genuinely shocks me that people can talk to AI through platforms designed to give them the ability to interact with AI and walk away persuaded that AI must be conscious. Where did consciousness even enter into the equation? The program was meticulously crafted to have a conversation with you. We might as well marvel at a book's ability to describe the night sky. Like, the book didn't do that, right? A person wrote in the book. Books don't have eyes, you goofball. It's true that the human brain is a machine, or at least something that operates mechanically, but a consciousness doesn't seem to emerge from the mechanisms of the brain alone. It's the brain's ability to interpret stimulus from our senses, prioritize information to adapt and survive, have memories, tell itself stories about those memories, lie to itself and create illusions to achieve goals. At present, AI can only achieve amazing goals at the directive of human beings. The Moderna vaccine was developed in just 2 days using machine learning to complete its mRNA sequencing. It's also seen breakthroughs in predicting pancreatic cancer. These achievements mean nothing to the machines that made them, but by outsourcing cognition, we amplify our strengths with those of AI to brute force our way through problems that humans can't really achieve as effectively. Of course, you could say that AI has become a part of the human autopoietic system. It's not conscious in and of itself, but it helps us become more conscious of ourselves by connecting us to information and each other. But if I'm being honest, I'm not all that impressed by that. Again, it's a heightened form of technology that we've been using since forever. Offloading cognition. A lot of people like to act like us Luddites are just denying the consciousness of artificial intelligence because we don't want to feel like our special place in the universe is being threatened. So, every time AI jumps a new hurdle, we'll set the goalpost higher, farther, sport thing? But that isn't true, actually. Humans anthropomorphize anything that even faintly resembles us. We assume purposefulness and emotionality in non-human entities without even thinking about it. We instinctually feel empathy for inanimate objects. Have you ever tried to make a child put down a rock? They'll cry and tell you it's their best friend. We actually have a bias toward assuming humanity in other things. 2/3 of people believe that AI already possesses a form of consciousness. As a human being, it's impossible to have a conversation with something like ChatGPT or even Cleverbot without imagining a human being on the other side of the screen. But human beings are highly prone to illusion, even with regards to ourselves, especially with regards to ourselves. As for the anger, it's there, yeah. Not at the machines, they're objects. Not even at the passionate scientists and engineers who want to push the limits of their understanding, who want to see what their inventions could one day achieve. That's the kind of passion and inquisitiveness that I like to see in human beings. I'm angry at the capitalists who use AI to steal the work of human beings and sell old products under new titles to drive up their own economic value. Companies will just straight up lie to make their products seem sexier and get around compensating human beings for their labor. Like, is Spotify's ability to recommend a new song really AI? Or does it simply regurgitate inputs given to it by human beings manning an algorithmic program that has been in effect for like a decade already? And if that's AI, why wasn't it branded that way until AI became the hot new thing for a company to boast? And if I'm being honest, I'm a little bit angry at my fellow artists. Sorry. Drew Gooden made a pretty compelling argument dissuading aspiring artists from using AI in their work.
There's so many tools along the way that help you streamline the process of getting from an idea to a finished product. But at a certain point, if the tool is just doing everything for you, you are not an artist. You just described what you wanted to make and asked a computer to make it for you. You're also not learning anything this way. Part of what makes art special is that it's difficult to make, even with all the tools right in front of you.
I completely agree. And I think I'd take it even a little bit further. When you use AI to do part of creation for you, you essentially sever a limb on your creative body. If you love writing stories but struggle to come up with ideas, offloading that mental work to a machine will just make your own brain weaker. If you have a job that you don't like and you despise writing the same goddamn brainless email over and over again, sure, offload that to ChatGPT or whatever. But if you're a writer and you continuously use a machine to plug other people's ideas into your work, you're slowly chipping away at your own mind's ability to create. Like, I'm 30 and I've only just recently begun writing screenplays that I'm genuinely happy with, like in the last few years. It's okay to spend 15 years writing garbage. Don't be afraid of that. That's how you get better. Machines are supposed to extend the abilities of human achievement, not stunt them. Offload the cognition you don't need in order to do your art, but strengthen the muscles that matter, the imagination, the critical thinking, the aesthetic sensibility. If you want to make good art, you need to be mindful of what parts of your mind you're sacrificing. All technology is a trade. I just ask that you enter the agreement mindfully, because AI can't do that shit for you. This video is brought to you by me. You're welcome. I think about stories a lot, almost constantly. I'm not sure where I am right now. Point is, if you're writing a story and you need some help, you can hire me. I consult on screenplays, write serialized fiction, and yes, I write scripts for YouTube professionally. That's right, you're looking at a pro. Don't check my sub count. You can go to my website to check out my portfolio, read my reviews, look at my prices, and reach out for a chat about how I can help with your project.